The United Kingdom says that political compromise in Yemen requires new UN resolution. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Linderking affirms that the international community is united to end the war in Yemen. The government forces clash with the Houthi rebels in different areas in Shabwa. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swaylam. The United Kingdom stressed the need for a new Security Council resolution to reach a comprehensive political agreement. UK Ambassador to Yemen said in an interview with Ashraq al-Awsat newspaper that a gap has occurred between the content of Resolution 2216 issued by the Security Council in 2015 and the situation on the ground that changed daily. He pointed out that this will be reflected in any future political agreements, stressing that any political settlement between the parties need a new UN resolution. The British diplomat suggested that the new UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, would present a comprehensive peace plan soon. The U.S. envoy to Yemen, Tim Linderking, confirmed that some progress has been made in the Yemeni file, assuring that there is an international consensus on the need to end the war, stressing that there is no military solution to the war in Yemen. Linderking said in an interview with Al Arabiya that Houthi escalation in Ma'rib is the biggest obstacle to achieving peace now, stressing that every day that passes, the Yemeni people pay a heavy price. UN Humanitarian Coordinator in Yemen, David Gressly, said they have now been given authorization to access Abdiyah, though security concerns remain. According to Reuters, Gressly believes that the situation now is quieter and aid access in the upcoming days could be greater, calling for the humanitarian corridor to be agreed by the warring sides. The UN top official added that a lot of supplies, food, medicine, and rapid response kits that provide basic necessities for those who are displaced are now being deployed. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said that about 800 families were forcibly displaced this week from their areas of origin in Ma'rib due to fighting. The organization expressed concern over recent developments in Ma'rib, where intense clashes are steadily displacing hundreds of families. United Nations said that thousands of families are internally displaced due to recent fighting in and around Ma'rib. The following report sheds light on the current situation of displacement due to Houthi escalation.
Houthi brutal siege on Abdiyah has caused an alarming humanitarian disaster. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs confirmed that 44,000 people were displaced this year by the military escalation by Houthi militias in Yemen. The uprooting continues as the government warns against the deteriorating situation in Ma'rib, west and south. Around 4,000 families are stuck in Ma'rib's Abdiyah district, where government forces are fighting off Houthi militia. This comes as the Yemeni Foreign Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak warned of the dangerous repercussions of the Houthis' escalating offensive against civilians and displaced people in Ma'rib. During a meeting with the chief of the International Organization for Migration, bin Mubarak said that the Houthis' military escalation exacerbates the difficult humanitarian conditions of the displaced, especially in Ma'rib, which is home to more than 2 million displaced people. He also warned that the international community's disregard for such practices allows the Houthis to commit more violence and violations against civilians, which compounds the displacement crisis, forces displacement of civilians, and increases their human suffering. In September, Ma'rib South witnessed the displacement of over 3,000 families. While bin Mubarak praised the role played by the IOM in alleviating the tragic conditions faced by the displaced, he pointed to the need for intensifying the organization's work in the interim capital, Aden, and other liberated governorates. Meanwhile, in its weekly situation overview on the humanitarian situation in Yemen, OCHA stated that intense fighting continues across Ma'rib, with hostilities particularly prevalent in Sirwah, Rahaba, and Mahliya districts. The report revealed that since the beginning of the Houthi military escalation in January, around 44,000 people have been displaced. As for Abdiyah in southern Ma'rib, around 4,000 families are stuck in war zones. More so, the report revealed that local sources had spotted heavy sniper fire targeting convoys transporting medical supplies and essential commodities to Abdiyah. Healthy war crimes in Abdiyah have been committed before in some areas and can be repeated in others. It seems like cities in Yemen would fall one after another in the hold of the dragon. While condemnation seems to be the only tactic the international community has in hand to pressure on Houthis.
To south of Ma'rib, government forces backed by national resistance take up fierce clashes with Houthi militia. According to military sources, government forces defended Houthi attacks and targeted movements of the rebels with artillery shells in separate locations south of Ma'rib, causing the militia to suffer heavy losses. In Shabwa, government forces clashed with rebels in Bayhan front. Field military sources said that the government forces advanced towards Al-Alam strategic site in Usaylan. According to the sources, government forces inflicted heavy losses among the rebels. Houthi militias targeted citizens' farms in Tuhaita, violating the Stockholm Agreement. Local sources said that Houthi militia targeted citizens' farms with heavy mortar shells, causing a state of fear and panic among farmers. Amid shortage in cooking gas, Yemenis resort to firewood as a replacement of cooking gas to survive. This story has more details.
The high demand for forest wood in Yemen due to fuel shortage crisis has led to the emergence of desertification risks, threatening the environment and biodiversity. Al-Imadi Yemeni woodcutter was forced to cut down trees in the northern governorate of Al-Mahwit to pay for his own living, after the economic collapse wiped out the jobs that he was working in the fields of agriculture and construction. However, with the demand for firewood soaring due to the fuel shortage crisis, fears are now emerging that the humanitarian crisis in which millions face starvation has led to an increased risk of desertification, threatening the environment and any hope of livelihood for people like Al-Imadi in the long term. Bakery owners use wood and stones to light their ovens after they used gas in the past, as they have no alternative now but wood. Al-Imadi, who supports 7 children, said that the availability of reasonable quantities of wood used to allow him to make a living, but trees are now scarce. The 6-year-old war between the recognized government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition, and the Iran-aligned Houthi movement has killed tens of thousands of people and driven 80% of Yemen's population to rely on aid. Companies, businesses, and families have also resorted to using firewood instead of diesel and gas due to fuel shortages, due to the blockade imposed by the coalition on areas under Houthi control, including restrictions on the main port of Hodeidah. The coalition says the blockade is necessary to thwart arms smuggling. Abdullah Abu al-Futuh, Director of Biodiversity and Nature Reserves at the Public Authority for Environmental Protection in the city, which is run by the Houthi authorities like most areas of northern Yemen, said that 886,000 trees are cut down every year to feed bakeries and restaurants in the capital Sana'a alone. He added that the number of trees cut down in the past 3 years across the north of the country is about 5 million. In Al-Mahwit Governorate, which is known for its dense green cover, several types of acacia, cedar, and coniferous trees began to disappear. What people fear the most is that the country will turn into a desert, because there are manifestations of that. It is no longer possible to see the trees that covered the mountains. What is happening now is the uprooting of trees so that nothing is left of them. The battle is still not over yet, and the resources start to vanish day by day from the war. And at the end, all who suffer is the Yemenis.
Coming next. Collapsing economy and devaluation of the rial aggravates the suffering of Yemenis nationwide.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18,000 والكيس السكر اليوم ب20,000. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما ندفنا شلقينا ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما احنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. Houthi militia arrested Adil Shamsan and kicked out his family from their house. Meanwhile, his lawyer, Abdullah Shaddad, said that Houthi militia released Adil Shamsan after signing a pledge not to return to his home in Sana'a, owned by his brother, the governor of Taiz, Nabil Shamsan. A continuous deterioration of the national currency without any looming solutions. Food product increases significantly amid government indifference at a time when UN reports warn of a famine that threatens half of the Yemeni people. This report has more.
Many tragedies shared by Yemenis throughout the years of war, which are aggravating day after day. However, hunger haunts everyone due to the continuous deterioration of the national currency. A new phase of the collapse of the Yemeni rial, which seemed catastrophic. And the sole victim of this is the Yemeni citizen. Yemenis accuse the government for the deterioration of the Yemeni rial, the government's indifference to the conditions of Yemenis that are ravaged by poverty and hunger from all sides. Rigid and negligent role of merchants and price manipulating of consumer goods without regulations aggravates the hardship of Yemenis too.
Yesterday, tomatoes price ranged between 2,000 and 2,200 riyals. Merchants manipulate prices, as each has a different price from the other. The situation is hard. We cannot bear this. People who got money leave country, but the one who has no money cannot go anywhere. Where would someone go? To the streets and ask for money? This economic war affects more than the military war on the fronts. Every day a new price.
An unprecedented decline of the Yemeni rial, reaching 1,380 riyals against the dollar and 360 riyals for the Saudi rial. This was offset by a 130% increase in remittance fees between Sana'a and Aden and a sharp increase in food prices by 80%. Those numbers are subjected to increase amid government's indifference. More than half of Yemenis are below the poverty line and unable to secure life requirements according to UN reports.
Prices are not fixed and they change daily. There is no control over merchant. Each trader has his own price, and when you ask about the reason, their excuse is the exchange rate.
Nothing on the horizon seems clear to end the suffering of millions of Yemenis whose only request is a stable life, especially with the continuous violations of Houthi militia of every peace initiatives and the government's indifference to the suffering and pain of Yemenis.
World Health Organization warned that nearly 20 million of the total population in Yemen are exposed to malaria as the most common transmitted disease in the country. This report has more details.
More than 21 million Yemenis live in areas at risk of contracting malaria, while nearly 7 million people live in high-risk areas. Yemen suffers from a complex humanitarian crisis. The ongoing conflict has displaced 1.6 million people to malaria. Malaria poses a real threat to public health, noting that it affects some of the most vulnerable communities in Yemen. High rates of malnutrition have increased the risk of malaria among vulnerable groups, especially children under 5 and pregnant women due to their reduced immune systems.
Yemen has been witnessing a fierce war for almost 7 years now, which has caused the worst humanitarian crisis and closed half of the health sectors, which has helped spread diseases and epidemics in the country. The precautionary measures reinforce the population's fear of going to facilities and receive health services. An estimated 229 million cases of malaria and 409,000 malaria-related deaths occurred in 87 countries in 2019. In a previous statement, the World Health Organization confirmed that malaria still infects millions every year and kills more than 400,000, mostly children, due to the faltering efforts to combat the mosquito-borne disease. The organization warned that the funding to combat the disease, which kills a child every 2 minutes, is generally poor. Doctors Without Borders also confirmed earlier that malaria continues to affect thousands of Yemeni population in light of a weak health system as a result of the ongoing war in the country. The organization announced that it treated more than 10,000 malaria patients in 2017 alone. To prevent malaria, medical sources advise those residing in malaria-spreading areas to wear long-sleeved pants and shirts, put the bottom of the shirt inside the pajamas, and bend his legs inside the socks. In addition, sleeping under a mosquito net, especially those saturated with antimicrobials. Yemeni people keep suffering from all sorts of diseases, yet the international community seems to turn a blind eye.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The United Kingdom says that political compromise in Yemen requires new UN resolution. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Linder-King affirms that the international community is united to end the war in Yemen. The government forces clash with the Houthi rebels in different areas in Shabwa. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.